Hello and welcome to Craft with Sarah. In this video, I'm sharing a free SVG with you for the 4th of July. This is an extra special design to commemorate this very special year. This year marks the 250th year since the adoption of the Declaration of Independence, and I've had quite a few requests for a special shadow box design to commemorate. The background of the fireworks can be removed in Design Space if you'd rather just make the front of the design itself. It fits really nicely into a square frame, or you can resize it smaller and remove the background to go on a greetings card. Let's get started. You can find the free files to make this project at craftwithsarah.com/free-SVGs, or click the link in the description of this video to go to the tutorial where you can download straight from that page. You'll need to register a free account on my website in order to download any of the designs. The download comes in a zip folder. Before you can get the files into your cutting machine software, you'll need to unzip that folder. Visit craftwithsarah.com/help for instructions on how to do that, as well as a wide range of other tutorials on how to use your Cricut, Silhouette, or Scan and Cut machine. If you're going to be making this design with the fireworks background, then you'll need to measure the frame to know what size to make the design in Cricut Design Space. If you're making it without the background but you'd still like to put it in a frame, I've got a separate video on how you can check the size of everything to make sure it's going to fit beautifully. To find that video, head to craftwithsarah.com/help. Choose Cricut from the list of machine options, then scroll down near the bottom of that page for the video on how to frame layered designs. But for the full shadow box with the background, here's how to do it. I'm using this box frame here. This was originally from IKEA. I'm not sure they make this exact frame anymore, but I do think they have a similar one. But if not, any kind of shadow box or box frame from any craft store will do. So what you want to do is turn it over and open up all of the back, and then take out the back of the frame. Then measure from one side all the way to the other. So for my frame, that is 9 inches. You could also measure the back of the spacer instead from one side all the way to the other. It should give you the same measurement. Now we know how big to make the SVG, let's do that in Cricut Design Space. Here's what the shadow box design looks like when loaded into Cricut Design Space. You can either cut it as is with the fireworks background or remove the background to just cut the circular design. To do that, click on the design and ungroup the layers with the ungroup button at the top of the layers panel. Scroll down to the bottom until you see the square layers. Then click them all one by one and either click the eye icon that appears when you hover to hide it, or you can click the delete button at the top of the layers panel. If something is hidden in Design Space, it means it won't be cut out. So then you'd end up with something like this instead. But I am going to cut mine with the fireworks, so let's turn them back on. At the moment, there's 2 reds and 2 blues for the fireworks. To make it a bit simpler, you can hide the second red and the second blue and just cut one of each. But again, I'm going to do mine as it comes. Okay, so now we need to resize this to fit into the frame. Because I've ungrouped the layers, I'll select them all and group them again so that when I change the size, everything changes in proportion. My frame was 9 inches, so I need to go into size and change the width and the height both to 9. And now that will perfectly fit in my frame. When you're ready to cut, connect to your machine up here and then press make. That will separate out all of the different colours for you. You can change the paper size in the drop down here, although as I've cut mine so big at 9 inches wide, it won't actually let me use my normal A4 paper as this would be too big for that, so I'll keep it on the 12 by 12. On some of the other colours though, where it doesn't have the background, it should let me change it, at least for some of the pieces, if not all of them. When you're happy with how all of your sheets are looking, press continue and follow the on-screen instructions to get everything cut from cardstock with your Cricut. Here are the pieces of my design cut out, and I've laid them on top of each other, following the assembly guide included in the download folder to check I'm happy with the colours. All my little pieces for the America along the top and some of the other smaller bits are over to one side. Now, looking at this on the screen and also in real life, it sort of looks like my fireworks are all done from one red and one blue. They are different colours, and it's a bit of an optical illusion because when you look at the colours next to each other, like this, they're very obviously four different colours. I've got a pink, a red, a kind of teal colour, and a blue. But when they're put together to make the fireworks, and then we've got the white and the black on top, for some reason those blues and the red and the pink kind of go in together a little bit, so it's harder to see the difference. There is a difference there, just a little tricky to view. So if yours is doing the same thing, it's nothing you've done, it's just a weird trick of the eye with those small gaps of the cardstock. I've used a very glittery silver card for that top grey layer to add a bit of bling inside my frame. Okay, so we're going to start with the fireworks, and all of these pieces will be glued together. I'm using Barely Art Glue, but I also like Collall. The reason I like these glues is they don't bend or wrinkle the card like some glues can do. If you're making it without the background, then you wouldn't have these pieces, and you can skip ahead through this bit to get on to the next section. We'll start with the very bottom bit, which is my pink, and on top of that goes the red. You see how different they are? And it even looks quite different when you just look at this one. I don't really know what's going on there. Line it up so that the edges of the new bit you're putting on match up exactly with the edges of the base piece. For all these square bits, you want to be really accurate, otherwise if you go over on any of the sides, it might not fit into your frame. Next up is this one. When you're putting these on, line up the edges still, but also you want to try and make sure your firework cutout segments are all lined up nicely so that you can see all the colours through there. Next up is the other blue. Then we've got the white. And finally the black. And that's the background done. Now that the background's done, we can move on to building up the rest of the pieces. And if you weren't doing the background, this is where you would start. So you would have the red bit here. I'm going to use foam squares to add this into my project. The foam squares I'm using are from Dot & Dab, but any will do. These ones are 2mm thick. The ones in this pack are 5x5 because that's the only ones I had actually in a new pack to show you. But as the shadow box is big, I'm using these slightly bigger ones. These are 10x10mm, which will just make it all go a little bit quicker. Okay, let's turn this upside down and add the foam squares on the back. I'll start by working around the outside, leaving about 1 inch between each of the foam squares. So that's all around the edge, but you don't want to just leave it there, because if you do, there's nothing to keep all of this big middle section of cardstock stable and level with all of the other bits. So you might find that it dips downwards in the middle where there's nothing to support it. In order to stop that happening, add a few foam squares into that large area too. Then peel the tops off to reveal all the stickiness underneath. Then bring your background back in. We'll line this up. You can kind of tell where it goes because you've got the edges of where it will say America will go into these top fireworks. I'm going to line them up and then gently drop down. And the reason for the gentle drop is that if you weren't happy with that positioning, you can pick it up and move it because it hasn't stuck yet. I think I just need to turn mine ever so slightly because it wasn't quite covering up all the black in the middle of that firework. And now that's looking good. So now I can push down and get that really nice and stuck. The next piece to go on is this white one, and this is a glue layer. Use the letters at the top again on those corners, and also this little bit where it pokes out of the left hand side to see how to line it up. Then we've got this bit. So this is the bit you can either choose to glue on, in which case you can just put it on now and it will line up with the white and the red on the other layers. Or if you want to add a bit more dimension, then do this bit with foam squares. But if that's the case, you'll need the little red semicircle and the white strip. Otherwise, because of the shadowing, you can see you can't really see. If it's pushed up with glue, it's fine, but once it's raised up with foam squares, the shadowing means you can't read it anymore. I'll do mine with foam squares, which means I will need those two little extra pieces. We'll turn that over and add some glue around those numbers and the stars. And it doesn't really matter which one you do first. The red semicircle. Oh, you know what? I've said that, but actually it does, because that's not going to fit. So I have to do the strip over the numbers first. There we go. And then that one on top, because it will overlap the white a little bit. There we go. Okay, so white first and then red. And then you end up with that. So it's nice and clear on those colours. And then add some foam squares to the back. Then this will sit in the middle of the white. I've got little bits of glue everywhere, which is why I keep shaking things off. So once again, we can line up the outline of the word America and that little sticky out bit on the left. And then the rest of it will all drop into position. And then you can do the America next if you want, but I find it easier to add this bit next. And you've got a bit more context about where everything is going. We've got the 250 here to do with more foam squares. I accidentally cut my white sheets wrong way around, so the pretty texture side is the one I'm adding the foam squares on, but never mind. Line it up, gently drop down, and then push when you're happy. And then the rest of the 250 pieces will all be glued on. We'll start with this one. Next up is the darker blue. Then the lighter blue. Then finally the grey or glittery piece. Ooh, I'm going to throw it all over the place. And don't forget the little oval shape to go in the middle of the 0. Then it's just the America left at the top. I'm going to line all these up to get the position right before I start sticking. I need to remember, I need to look at the not pretty side because I got it the wrong way around. This isn't very straight at the minute, but I can straighten it as I stick. Just wanted to make sure it was all going to fit. You can sort of plan it out from how the top bit goes down as you go. And then you can choose to either glue these, which would be easier, or you can use foam squares. I'm going to use foam squares, but I'll switch to my smaller ones for these. If your foam squares don't fit, cut them smaller with scissors. They're very easy to cut. If you gently lie them down and don't push them down yet, then if you need to move them about as you add in the other letters, you can do. So I'm going to go through now, pause my video and get all of those stuck on. Now my layering is all done. You can see all the depth in that. It is really pretty. So it's time to go in the frame. First up, if you're adding the glass in your frame, give it a good clean before you put it in. I'm not using the glass, otherwise it would just reflect my camera lights and you wouldn't be able to see anything. So glass first if you're using it. Then put the spacer inside. Then your design will go on the back of that spacer and that will hold it in place like that. And then add the back of the frame in on top and then close down all the little tabs. And we'll turn it around. Ta-da! There we go, a beautiful patriotic design for the 4th of July for the 250th anniversary. I hope that you enjoyed this video on how to use my free SVG to make a beautiful layered paper craft for the 4th of July. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for loads more Cricut crafts and free SVGs. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!